Everyone is screaming that hiring Mike McCarthy is the absolute death of this franchise. But what if the angry mob is dead wrong? What if the unthinkable reunion with Aaron Rodgers is actually the only way to save us from mediocrity? And wait until you hear the shocking college name that just dropped out of nowhere to shake up the entire search. Before we dive into this insanity, do me a massive favor and smash that like button, share this with a friend, and subscribe so you never miss a breaking update. Let's get into the controversy immediately. I keep hearing this narrative over and over again. People are saying that bringing in Mike McCarthy and subsequently luring Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh would be the worst decision this organization could possibly make. The absolute worst. But I have to ask you, are you sure about that? Because when you really break it down, is it actually the nightmare scenario everyone is painting it to be? Look, trust me, I get the romantic idea of a total rebuild. I understand the desire to wipe the slate clean, bring in a fresh, young offensive genius, draft a 21-year-old quarterback, and pray that they develop into the face of the franchise for the next decade. That is the dream. But let's be real for a second. There are infinitely worse things you could do than hiring a Super Bowl-winning coach like McCarthy and giving him the leverage to bring a Hall of Famer like Aaron Rodgers with him. It would be strange, I admit that. Seeing Rodgers in the black and gold would be surreal. It would feel almost like a glitch in the Matrix, maybe even weirder than seeing him in a Jets uniform. But at this point, where we are as a team, I am open to anything if I can see a legitimate path to a Lombardi trophy. And frankly, there is a much darker timeline than the Rodgers-McCarthy experiment. You want to know what a true nightmare looks like? Signing Joe Flacco. That would be worse. That would be the rock-bottom moment. Not only is Flacco historically and currently not in the same stratosphere as Aaron Rodgers, but just out of sheer principle, we cannot do it. I don't care if you tell me Flacco is coming in to be a mentor or a backup. We cannot allow that man to step foot in our locker room. We cannot allow him to run the entire AFC North gauntlet on our watch. Think about it. He spends his prime with the Ravens, winning rings and breaking our hearts. Then he goes to the Browns. Then he has a stint with the Bengals practice squad. And now you want his final stop to be Pittsburgh. Absolutely not. We cannot be the team that gives him the full division bingo card. We are not sloppy seconds, and we are certainly not sloppy fourths. Are you kidding me? I know he's a smart businessman trying to keep his career alive, but as a fan base, we have to draw the line. Given the history, the rivalry games, the bad blood, it's a hard pass. If you want to talk about being desperate or stuck as a franchise, signing Flacco is desperation. Running it back with Rodgers, that's calculation. With Rodgers, you aren't getting a long-term answer for 2026 or 2027. We know that. But at least you can talk yourself into a legitimate ceiling for next year. You can see the vision. You bring in McCarthy, you rely on their established chemistry, you bolster the offense, and you get Rodgers some actual weapons outside of the current receiver room. You look at that wild card loss. We weren't that far off for 3 quarters. If we don't have that fumble, it's a tight game. The defense can hold up. I know, the results are the results. We haven't won a playoff game in an eternity. That is why Tomlin stepped away and why we are heading in a new direction. But the concept of pairing Rodgers with McCarthy is not a bad route to take. I understand the appeal of the Will Howard route or signing a Malik Willis and trying to find a diamond in the rough. I get that. But if the goal is to compete right now, you are not finding a better option on the market than Aaron Rodgers. And that brings me to the big rhetorical question I want you to chew on. Is this franchise actually capable of tanking, or are we addicted to being competitive? Because my thought is, let's just be honest with ourselves. The Steelers do not tank. It is not in the DNA. Even with a new coach and a new regime, they are going to try to make the playoffs. They are going to try to win immediately. You can argue whether that's the right philosophy or if it keeps us on the hamster wheel of mediocrity, but it is the reality. We are never going to pull a Browns or Lions move and lose every game on purpose to get the number 1 pick. So, if we are going to try to win anyway, why go halfway? If we go 2-15, sure, that helps the future. But we won't do that. So if we are going to win 9 or 10 games, wouldn't you rather do it with a quarterback who can actually make a run in January? That's where the Rodgers and McCarthy debate gets interesting. There is no doubt that duo gives you a higher ceiling next season than a rookie or a bridge quarterback. Now, the biggest argument I see against McCarthy is his age. He's older. He's been around. The Steelers traditionally hire young, defensive-minded guys and keep them for 20 years. We have had 3 coaches since 1969. It is the model. But here is my hot take. We do not have to do the exact same thing we have done for the last 50 years. Tradition is great, but winning is better. We could sign McCarthy to a 3 or 4-year deal. He doesn't need to be the coach for the next 2 decades. He can be the guy for this specific window. You bring in Rodgers for a year or 2. You have a young guy like Will Howard developing behind him. You give McCarthy a chance to draft his future quarterback in 2027. McCarthy is not bad with quarterbacks. Look what he did with Rodgers in Green Bay. Look at Dak Prescott's best years in Dallas. The issues in Dallas were rarely about the offense scoring points. It was about the defense collapsing or culture issues. If we can pair McCarthy with a legitimate defensive coordinator, someone who can keep this unit in the top 10, why couldn't it work? Why not take a swing at a ring in the short term while we figure out the long term? It is interesting because insiders are saying McCarthy was deeply moved by the interview process. He's a local guy. He grew up in Greenfield. Walking back into that facility, there is a mystique there. For him, it would be a full-circle moment, coming home to finish his career. And again, this doesn't have to be a lifetime contract. We can think outside the box. We can try something new. I'm not saying McCarthy is my absolute #1 dream candidate, but to dismiss him as a disaster is foolish. Here is the controversial question of the day, and I really want you to sound off in the comments below on this one. Would you rather suffer through a brutal 3-year rebuild with a rookie head coach just to say we started fresh? Or would you rather hire Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers for a chaotic, high-stakes 2-year window to try and steal a Super Bowl right now? Let me know what you value more, the future or the now. Now, let's look at the actual list, because Adam Schefter is dropping some serious knowledge. According to him, the top 3 candidates right now are Mike McCarthy, Chris Shula from the Rams, and Anthony Weaver from the Dolphins. That is a fascinating trio. And it's not just about who the Steelers want. It's about who is left. The list is dwindling. Jesse Minter, who many of us liked, just signed with the Ravens to be their head coach. That one stings. Brian Flores is apparently heading back to the Vikings, and while he has an out clause, the buzz around him has completely died down. So we are looking at McCarthy, Shula, and Weaver. I am getting the vibe that these are the finalists. Maybe you throw a guy like Frank Smith in there, but the Steelers can't really talk to the Rams coaches fully because they are still in the playoffs. This creates a dangerous game of chicken. If the Steelers wait too long for Shula, they run the risk of losing McCarthy or Weaver to another team. But if Shula is truly their guy, they have to wait. And honestly, if those are your top 3, you can afford to be patient. I don't think Shula is looking anywhere else. I don't see McCarthy rushing to take a coordinator job somewhere else when the Pittsburgh job is in play. The Titans already made their move. The Commanders are doing their thing. The market is settling. However, just when we thought we had the list narrowed down, a completely random bombshell dropped. This one came out of left field, and I honestly don't know where Brian Baldinger got this info, but he is a respected analyst, so we have to listen. Baldinger is reporting that the Steelers are heavily interested in University of Miami head coach Mario Cristobal. Yes, you heard that right. Mario Cristobal. Now, before you roll your eyes, think about the transition. Cristobal is an old-school grinder. He is an offensive line guy. I watched his practices in the spring. He had Jason Taylor coaching the defensive line. He was coaching the offensive line. The intensity was off the charts. It reminded me of how football used to be coached before everything got soft. He built Oregon into a powerhouse. He went back to his alma mater, Miami, and has them looking like a legitimate threat again. The argument for a guy like Cristobal is the same argument for why the Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh. In the modern NFL, the draft is everything. Who knows these incoming players better than the guys who just recruited them and coached against them? Bringing in a college coach gives you a distinct personnel advantage for the first 3 or 4 years. Harbaugh is doing it with Michigan players in LA. Cristobal could do the same here. He knows how to build a program. He knows how to build a culture. And let's be honest, coaching in college right now is a nightmare.